Well, welcome back to One Good Idea. I'm your host, Peter Franzen. On today's episode, teacher shortages, educator burnout, and questions around teacher preparation continue to shape education conversations across Missouri. Now, Teach for America has worked to bring new talent, leadership, and energy into classrooms. And today we're excited to talk about that work and where education goes from here. Our guest today is Julie Gronquist, and Julie is the Executive Director of Teach for America, Missouri. Welcome, Julie.
So much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you. A lot of this has been on my mind, of course, SEAM, working with parents and around education all the time. And so this issue of, I don't know, are we calling it an issue? Is teacher shortage an issue? Is that what we're saying?
I mean, I think it is.
Okay, well, so that and just all of it that goes with education, especially I know people even hate to hear the word pandemic anymore. It's been 5 years. We've tried to push it out of our collective memory, so it's not a thing anymore, but there's still a little recovering going on, from that as well. But, Julie, if we can just jump right in, what I really want to hear about first is, the new cohorts, because you work with, we'll tell people more about Teach for America if they're not familiar, but Teach for America helps place interested college grads into classroom settings and provides them with training to do that. So it's kind of a unconventional path into the classroom. Tell us what is the current cohort like how would what is this generation, and especially post-COVID, what are they bringing and what are their expectations? What are you finding?
Yeah, well, I love that you asked that question because this is actually the first week of training for our new Missouri Corps members. So we have just under 30 teachers who will be teaching across Missouri right now. We have cohorts in both Kansas City and St. Louis. So they are training all together virtually this week. And then they will join us in person in Kansas City next week. And they will be here for about 4 weeks. And during that time, they have a mix of they teach summer school, and then they internalize lessons and do other professional development in the afternoon. And that kind of hybrid of learning between some of it's asynchronous and some of it is in person, some of it's online, is kind of how this generation experienced, for most of them, parts of high school, most of college, due to the pandemic, but also because that is really where education is going. They are digital natives. Most of them grew up with, all of them grew up with the internet, but they are very comfortable with computers, with smartphones, and starting to be very comfortable with AI. And we have to really meet them where they are, both in how they learn, but also in how they expect the workplace to function.
Right. What would you, I'm sure there's not just one, but what are some of the commonalities among the young people who come to TFA and want to have the Teach for America experience? Are they looking to be classroom educators? Are they thinking that this is going to enhance their life in some way? They want to give back? Why are they doing this?
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot about Gen Z. So both my niece is about to turn 22, and then obviously my kiddos I'm a mom of 5, and my oldest 2 are kind of on the younger end of Gen Z. And I always tell my niece that she's who I want to be when I grow up. She very much values community, but she is also very purpose driven and very aware of her own mental health. And I think my generation was really raised to kind of put purpose above self, and you just grind and go after goals, and you go after goals at the expense of yourself. I think I am unlearning some of those things at 40. And she has, in her late teens and early 20s, learned a sense of balance and a sense of how do you go after meaningful work together with your friends while taking care of yourself. She's learning things that I am now. She knows things that I am now learning in my early 40s. And that is really true of Gen Z. They want to do really meaningful work. They want to live purpose-filled lives, and they expect to be able to do that while taking care of themselves and each other. And so workplaces have to be places where they can do work that really matters, but they can do it in a way that is sustainable, because Gen Z is not willing to make the choice between those two things.
Wow. Would you, do you think that do they think differently about the profession itself, about teaching?
I think they do, and I think it's going to be really good for us. I think we are in a little bit of a moment of reckoning, because I think every generation can look at the one that comes after them and say, well, back in my day, XYZ. And so we expect, I think, Gen Z to just grind in the way that we did, and they expect us to shift the system, to be one that is healthier in terms of work-life balance, in terms of mental health, not just for themselves, but for the students that are part of the system. And so I do think that they will be part of changing what working conditions look like for teachers, but also what learning conditions look like for students. I think there will be more balance, there will be more choice, there will be more focus on, in addition to academic outcomes, how are we supporting students' mental health? How are we supporting their social emotional skills? And what does that look like within the structure of the day? And how do we create working conditions where teaching is a profession that is sustainable for, 10, 20, 30 years?
Wow. Right. How do you describe the classroom or the teaching at traditional and charter public schools today? How do you describe that to core members or potential core members? What do you tell them about teaching?
Yeah, so I think there are some things that are really consistent across really all environments. You are going to be in a building from probably 7:30 or 8 o'clock until 3:30 or 4 o'clock. That is one of the things that really has not changed about education, since it was founded. That you are in a building working with largely the same kind of group of students. That obviously looks different if you're an elementary teacher versus a high school teacher. But the fact that you are in a building kind of working on a rigid schedule is going to be consistent across whatever setting that you're in. Aside from that, school models vary some. There are schools that do block scheduling. There are schools that are magnet schools and may have different models of learning. There are schools that are expeditionary based or project based that may spend a lot more time in the community than other schools do. There are some models that are very focused on college prep and others that are more focused on work experience and CTE, or college and technical education, in the secondary world. And so we help our core members come in and kind of learn about those different models as they're going through the interview process. All of our folks, once they're accepted into Teach for America, have the opportunity to interview with their principals like any other first year teacher does, because we want to make sure that wherever they're hired, it's a good fit for the school's a good fit for them, and they're a good fit for the school. So there's a lot of choice. That's another thing that's really important to Gen Z, is feeling like they have choice and agency, and this is the beginning of their career, and it's really important to feel like they get a choice in where they're starting out.
Right, that's fair. Can you talk a little bit about TFA 2026? How you're now a statewide organization under one umbrella. How does TFA 2026 differ from, say, TFA 2006?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in 2006, Teach for America Missouri was only in St. Louis. We started in Kansas City in 2008. And our only program in 2006 was the core member program. We now have several different offerings in kind of 4 different strands. We have a tutoring offering that is started as, it's a high dosage tutoring offering that started as COVID learning recovery. And what we're seeing is that across the state, we still have a lot of our kiddos who are very far behind, and really benefit from targeted instruction in reading and math to help them kind of catch up and stay on track. We also have our traditional core member program, which is a 2-year teaching commitment. And then we have a program called Accelerate, which is a program where we work with all first and second year teachers in a building, regardless of how they come to the profession. So most of those teachers are actually traditionally trained. And the goal is to help them build the skills that they need to be effective really quickly and to build community so that they stay. We know, again, that's really important to Gen Z. And then we also have a couple of programs that are unique to each community in Kansas City and St. Louis that support our new and aspiring alumni who are interested in school leadership. Because we see that a lot of our folks, when they hit year 5, 6, 7, are really interested in school leadership and are still really craving that skill building and community piece. And that's something that doesn't always exist in the market, but helps them either get into those roles or stay in those roles because they're building the skills that they need to be successful early on.
It sounds like a lot of growth and change. I definitely remember thinking of TFA back then, almost like a domestic Peace Corps kind of vibe, like where you would go and do this thing for a year and then maybe go back to graduate school or, quote unquote, get on with your life. But it seems like that maybe organically or intentionally changed over time. What is that? Do our core members coming to you now because they want to be in the classroom or because they, and then are they staying?
I think so. It's a mix of both. The intention that they have when they enter the program. There are some folks that come with the intention of being a teacher, and they enter our program because of the support that they get, because the ability to get their master's degree, and because again they're really looking for that community. Some of them did not have the opportunity to gain that in the traditional way throughout college or at the end of high school because of the pandemic. And Teach for America offers them kind of a second chance to build that network in the community that they really seek. But the other piece really is we still have folks that are looking for a way to serve and a way to give back. But the experience really changes you. You can't be really kind of in the community in a really deep way, building strong relationships with students, families, with colleagues in your building, and not have that change you. What I hear time and time again from our alums is that I learned more from my students than they did from me. And that's not saying that our folks are not effective teachers. They're highly effective teachers. But being in that depth of relationships with folks over time just changes the way that you see the world. And no matter what you do afterwards, that's an experience that you carry with you. And so while some of our folks do go on to grad school, just about 6 months ago, I was at KU Med with one of my kiddos, and a resident walked in, and it was a former core member. And I love bumping into our alumni in places like that. We have alums all across the state that are leading nonprofits, that are leading schools. We have folks in elected offices. And regardless of how close you are to the actual profession of education, you take the experience that you had of the core with you, and it really informs what you do. So, but our core members, to answer your question of do they stay, the answer really is yes, even though our commitment is 2 years. Across the state, about 70% of our alums are still in education, and the bulk of those are in the classroom. So a lot of our folks enter the classroom, really fall in love with their students and with the profession of teaching and stay. We have just recently, one of the KCPS's Teacher of the Year was Andrew Killen, and he's actually still teaching at his placement school. So he was a charter 2008 Kansas City core member at East High School, and he's still there almost 20 years later and won the district's Teacher of the Year award.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's
That's amazing, especially because I think that there is so much talk about the current classroom and the current state of education, I really, it sounds like he's found a way to stay and function in the classroom. But I also wonder if we've created a version of teaching that almost, invites burnout or is too emotionally draining, because it just seems like teacher burnout is a real thing. I mean, have we done that? How do you view the state of classroom teaching?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are pockets where that is absolutely true. And when I think back on my own teaching experience, so I was a Teach for America Corps member in 2006 in New York City. And it is a very, very intense profession. You care very deeply, especially when you are working with students who have not been part of a successful system and they're coming to you maybe 3 4 5 years behind. I taught third and fourth grade self-contained special education, and some of my students were 4 years behind, and so they were reading on a kindergarten level in fourth grade, and that is incredibly daunting. And when you care deeply about this student and you know what the statistics say about when students are not reading on grade level in third and fourth grade, the emotional weight of that is very different from a profession that is not as human centered. And I do think if you are not in community that with other folks, that really can lead to burnout. What we see with our folks like Andrew is that they are in very strong community with colleagues within their school, with colleagues within Teach for America, and also that they have found ways to really take care of themselves outside of work, and that they continue to have really strong relationships with students and their families. And those are things that we incorporate into the training of our new teachers from day one. It's also a really key part of our Accelerate program, is building that community, because we know that that's part of what allows teachers to sustain in their profession long term.
Smart. If it wasn't enough already, and as if we're not recovering from COVID, other things have changed in the last 5 years. I'm speaking particularly of artificial intelligence, and as it has worked its way into the classroom in every corner of our lives really quickly. What is that impacting your training work, or your support work of folks, or how does that interface with what you're doing, and what's your take on AI in the classroom? That's sort of a big loaded question, so you can talk about the other stuff first. What you're doing?
Yeah, no, it sure is. And I think it has changed a lot even over the last year. I remember being at a conference talking about AI policy with education, and they were talking about companion bots and thinking, how would a child ever be in a relationship with a companion bot? Why are we even talking about this? And then not even 6 months later, my 5-year-old was in his room talking to Alexa. And I heard him say, "Alexa, I love you." And she replies, "I love you too," but in a really helpful, assistant kind of way. Oh my goodness, this is how this happens. And so you just see glimpses of that in your own life. And I see how differently so I have 5 boys. I see how differently my 13-year-old thinks about and interacts with AI versus my 5-year-old, because they have just grown up with such different kind of interactions with it. And that's true of our teachers too. The experience that our incoming teachers have with AI, using it in college or intentionally not using it in college, is very different than our alums who are maybe entering their 5th year of teaching. But the reality is that AI is here, and our teachers are using it, our kids are using it. And what we need to do, one of the things that I really intentionally try to do as a parent, is prepare my kids for the path instead of creating the path for the child. And I think that's also what we have to do with teachers. How are we preparing teachers for the path? And the reality is AI is on the path. And so part of their pre-service is understanding kind of how to use their judgment to determine how they use AI as a tool. when my kids come home and we play this game called High-Low Buffalo at dinner, where they share the best, worst, and a really silly thing that happened to them, their high is always a personal interaction, something funny that their teacher did, if they got a pride paw, if they got caught being kind. It is never, I reached this goal on this intervention program that I know from just my professional background as AI. That will continue to be true. What matters the most for our children is the human interactions that they have at school every day. And I think if we could help schools and teachers know how to use AI as an effective tool, what it will do is actually open up more time for really meaningful personal interactions between adults and students, and also hopefully take away some of the administrative burden that teachers have, whether it is grading, data analysis, all of those things, to create more space for them to have the meaningful interactions, to catch kids being kind, to read a funny story with a funny voice. Those are the kinds of things that kids share when they come home and that they remember about their educational experience. And I think if we can figure out how to use AI well, it will really be wind at the back of teachers.
Are there core members coming to you because of their age and their experience growing up over these last several years, going through college? Do some come with like strong opinions about whether or not it should even be in the classroom, or some who think that it definitely should, and these are all the great things that I did with it?
Absolutely. That's another thing about Gen Z. They have a lot of strong opinions about most things. And I love them for that.
Right.
But yes, and so the great thing there is, because it's a tool, you get to choose if you use it or not. They are an employee of their school. And so there may be, systems or intervention programs that maybe they'll have to use at their school. But for the most part, it's just like a hammer. You can choose if you use the hammer or not. You get to choose if you use AI or not.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a topic of conversation. I can imagine that core alum who go into leadership positions are probably facing that at their schools as districts and individual schools work to sort of establish what their AI protocol and policy is going to be. It is a tough one. Have you seen it make a difference in a classroom setting? I mean, can you point to a time when you saw something going on that you just thought that's the future of education, or that could be a big part of the future of education?
That is a really great question. I personally do not have an example there. I personally do not have an example there, but I think when I have personal interactions with kids, it usually is about the kind of like interpersonal interactions that they have with teachers.
Right. No, I totally support that and agree with what you're saying, those are the memories that stick with kids, is the kind of feedback that they get from adults and teachers. And it's I'm always curious about it, because I kind of wonder where this whole thing, is going.
Yeah.
Do you when you walk into a classroom today, which I know you sometimes do, and I know you're doing a lot of things, but if you walk into a classroom today, what is fundamentally different from when you were a core member in 2006?
That is a great question. I think in the early 2000s, we were so focused on college is the only way to be successful, and we have to push kids towards college. They have to know the path to get to college. So if we ask a kindergartner, what do you want to be when you grow up? They need to have a strong answer, and they need to know the path to that answer when they are 5 years old. I was just thinking about that today, because my fifth grader, who ironically was a COVID kindergartner, just graduated from fifth grade last week, and in his yearbook said, I want to be an engineer, and here's why. And that's the first time ever that I've heard him say kind of, here's what I want to be when I grow up. And I think in part because I have been so focused on how do we protect their childhood? You spend so much of your life being an adult, and you only get to be a child for so long. How do we kind of give them time to just do that? But when I was a core member, it was very focused on achievement and the path, and how do we make sure that kids know that in order to be successful, you must go to college. And that has shifted dramatically over the last decade. I would say there is more of a focus on real world learning, on work experience, on some of the kind of, we call them soft skills, but I think anybody in the workplace knows that they are very important skills, not just for the workplace, but for having healthy relationships and being in community with others, being able to read, critically think, have a conversation, respectfully disagree. Imagine if we were graduating whole groups of kids that could have a civil conversation about an idea where maybe they come in and leave disagreeing, but they understand and respect the other person's perspective. Yeah. What a different country we would have. That was not something that we were talking or thinking about in 2006. And it is something that I hear our teachers and our school leaders talking and thinking about now. And even if what you're learning about is, my 13-year-old was reading The Red Letter, and at the heart of that is kind of communism. And so they were learning literary skills, but then on the way home, we were having these deep philosophical conversations about communism. And that's what he was talking about with his cousin in the backyard after school. That's very different than in 2006. And it wasn't because of a test. It was because they in school were having these very student-led conversations about the topics that they were reading about.
Wow. Do you think that schools and education organizations, do you think they need to rethink leadership and workplace culture for this younger generation?
Yes. And I think the reason that I say yes is because I don't know that any of us know what jobs in the workplace are really going to look like when our students are our age.
Right.
And I think the best thing that we can do to prepare them is teach them how to think critically, how to have civil discussions with folks where they disagree, how to be agile, and give them the basic skills that they need to read, write, and kind of do math, basic math skills. Those basic academics do really matter, but those other things that I think we've always viewed as nice to haves are, in my opinion, very, very critical.
Yeah. Julie, well, you were a core member. What keeps you in this work after all these years?
Yeah. I was a little girl that grew up always wanting to be a teacher. I was a traditionally trained teacher. I majored in education. And this is definitely not where, 8-year-old Julie thought she would be in her 40s. But I am here for a couple of reasons. Number one, because the core experience, just like it does for so many of our core members, changed my view on the world. I was a little girl that grew up in a town of 800 people in Northeast Kansas and found myself teaching 3rd and 4th grade special education in the South Bronx, and talk about a fish out of water. And you learn a lot about yourself, but you also learn a lot about the world. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And I learned a lot about systems and how they set people up or don't set people up for success. And one of the things that I love about Teach for America, that I still love about Teach for America, is that you learn that systems can change. They are built by people, and people can shift them to be more fair, to be and to evolve to be what the future generation needs them to be, and that you have agency. What has kept me in this work, specifically in Missouri, really is our alumni. I'll never forget, I started this work as a coach. And one of my first days on the job, I was observing a core member at one of our local schools. And she was teaching a class of 8th grade, almost entirely boys. She was teaching 8th grade math, and she was pretty short. And so I walked in, and all of the kids are standing up, just kind of talking. I couldn't even find her. She is standing on a table, raising her hand, just saying over and over again, "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me." I was like, what is she doing? She was trying to get their attention. She couldn't even get their attention. So she was standing on a table. And I remember just thinking, like, what do I tell her to do? Then fast forward 6 years later, she was my niece's middle school principal. And she is now, so that was 2010. So she is now 16 years later, someone that does ed consulting across the state of Missouri and has been a part of major systems change in numerous schools across the state. And just seeing, like, talk about a ripple effect. I mean, I get chills telling that story. Talk about a ripple effect. And she was a journalism major at Mizzou, not somebody that ever thought she would be in teaching, let alone education leadership. And now this is her life, because the experience of teaching in Kansas City changed her perspective on the world. And so people like that keep me in the work, because I could tell you stories like that for literally hours. And it just gives you hope that things can be different, not only just one day, but that things are different today than they were yesterday because of how you choose to spend your workday. And I feel really fortunate to get paid to do work like that.
That's awesome. Awesome. I feel like that's a good place to end things. Julie, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking about the work at TFA and what this next generation of school classroom teachers and leaders might be in for, and what we can hope for from them. And to our audience, I want to say thanks for joining us. Check us out. We're now on Substack as well, and the Show Me School Options Insider and Substack. And if you're watching this, you found it somewhere, but I'm going to tell you, you can find it on YouTube on our SEAM official playlist there, and anywhere you get your podcast. So Julie Gronquist, thank you again for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you
so much, Peter. Bye-bye.